In the outer spiral of the Andromeda Veil, where starlight frayed into static and lawless drifters ruled the rusted corridors of dead stations, a freighter named the Whisper Moor groaned as it docked. Its hull was patched with scrap metal and old prayer strips, its engines coughing like a dying beast. From its narrow ramp stepped a woman no one paid attention to. She wore a faded gray cloak, its hem dusted with cosmic soot, and carried nothing but a simple broom made of dark wood and stiff bristles. Her ears rose slightly beneath her hood, sharp and elegant, hinting at a lineage most thought extinct. Her name was Luna. Beside her, curled in the crook of her arm like a sleeping house cat, was a small creature covered in dull copper scales. It breathed softly, its tail twitching now and then as if chasing dreams of flame. Most who glanced at them assumed the creature was a pet, maybe a mutated lizard from some forgotten moon. No one recognized the ancient sigils hidden in the pattern of its scales, or the way its closed eyes flickered with data streams older than the Human Federation itself. Luna moved without hurry through the crowded docking bay of Station Varel 9. The air smelled of burnt oil, stale sweat, and the sharp tang of ionized metal. Traders shouted over cargo loaders. Bounty hunters leaned against bulkheads with plasma rifles slung low, and children with two old eyes darted between legs, stealing ration bars and data chips. She ignored it all. Her boots made no sound on the grated floor. Her gaze stayed low, fixed on the grime beneath her feet as if searching for something lost. She had not always been this quiet. Once her name had been spoken in the same breath as storms and silence. Once fleets had turned course just to avoid the sector she guarded. But that was before the Great Quiet. Before she sealed away the last ember of the resonance war inside the egg that now slept in her arms. She had vanished then, not out of fear but out of sorrow. The war had not been won. It had simply run out of screams. Now, years later, she returned not as a warrior but as a cleaner. She took odd jobs on derelict ships, sweeping corridors where ghosts still whispered, scrubbing decks stained with old blood. The broom was her tool, her cover, and her secret. Carved from the heartwood of Ilthar, the last world tree of the elven homeworld, it held no blade, no charge, no obvious power. Yet when she swept, things changed. Dust vanished not just from floors but from memories. Broken circuits hummed back to life. Sometimes, in the quiet after her passing, machines would reboot with new purpose as if reminded of something kind. Station Varel 9 had no need for philosophers or mystics. It needed credits, muscle, and obedience. So when the enforcers of the Iron Syndicate spotted Luna, a lone, unarmed alien, they saw an easy mark. Their commander, a broad-shouldered brute named Kor with neural implants glowing along his temples, grinned as he blocked her path. "You're not on the manifest," he growled, voice modulated by a throat synth. "No gray cloaks allowed past Sector 7. Luna did not look up. She simply shifted the broom in her grip and stepped to the side. Kor grabbed her arm. "I said stop." The moment his fingers touched her sleeve, the little dragon stirred. Its eyes opened, just a slit, and a low hum filled the air, too deep for human ears, but sharp enough to make Kor's implants flicker. He jerked back as if burned, blinking in confusion. His squad tensed, hands on weapons. "Freak," one of them muttered. "Throw her in the pit," Kor snapped, rubbing his wrist. "Let the crowd decide if she's worth keeping." Before Luna could speak, and she rarely did, they dragged her away, broom and all, down a series of echoing corridors lit by flickering red strips. The dragon, now fully awake, pressed close to her chest but made no sound. It knew better than to fight here. This was not the time. They shoved her into a holding cell beneath the main arena, a circular chamber carved from asteroid rock, ringed with roaring spectators and stained with decades of blood sport. The air reeked of ozone and adrenaline. Through a narrow grate, she could hear the crowd chanting, hungry for violence. Above, holographic banners flashed odds and fighter names. None of them mattered to her. A guard tossed her a tunic and pointed to a door. "You fight in 10 cycles. No weapons allowed. Just you and your lizard." Luna nodded once and changed in silence. She kept the broom. No one thought to take it. Who would fear a cleaning tool? When the gate lifted, the noise hit like a wave. 50,000 voices screaming, betting, jeering. Spotlights pinned her as she walked onto the sand. She looked small, fragile, almost foolish in her plain clothes, broom held loosely in one hand. The crowd laughed. Some threw empty drink bulbs. A commentator's voice boomed across the speakers. And in the east gate, unknown female, species uncertain, armed with a broom? Ha! Someone's idea of a joke. She'll be paced before the first bell. From the west gate, the ground trembled. Steel doors rolled open and out stomped the champion, Brask the Unbroken. 7 feet tall, armored in black combat plating fused to his skeleton. One eye replaced with a targeting laser, the other wild with bloodlust. His fists crackled with energy knuckles. He had torn through 37 opponents this season. None lasted more than 90 seconds. He spotted Luna and roared, pounding his chest. The crowd rose to their feet, howling. Luna stopped at the center of the arena. She planted the broom upright in the sand and waited. Her eyes were calm, distant as if seeing not the monster before her but the threads of fate woven through him. Ember, now perched on her shoulder, watched with unblinking focus. Brask charged. The ground shook. His fist aimed to crush her skull, but Luna did not dodge. Instead, she tilted her head slightly as if listening to a song only she could hear. Then, just before impact, she swept the broom once, slow, deliberate, across the sand between them. Nothing seemed to happen. Then everything did. Brask froze mid-stride. His armor hissed, joints locking. His targeting laser flickered and died. The energy in his knuckles sputtered out like a dying candle. He tried to roar, but his voice box stuttered into silence. Around him, the very air thickened as if time itself had taken a breath. The crowd fell quiet. Confused murmurs spread like ripples. On the command deck high above, General Velan, old, scarred, one of the few still alive who had fought in the Resonance War, stood so fast his chair clattered backward. He stared at the screen, face pale. "No," he whispered. "It can't be." The broom wielder died in the core collapse. Down in the arena, Luna gave a second sweep. This time, Brask's armor began to unravel. Not explode, unravel. Plates detached, wires coiled back like vines. Bolts unscrewed themselves and dropped into the sand with soft pings. Within seconds, the mighty champion stood naked, trembling. Not from pain, but from sudden, overwhelming clarity. He looked at his hands as if seeing them for the first time, then dropped to his knees, weeping. The silence in the arena was absolute. Luna turned and walked back toward the gate, broom in hand, Ember purring softly on her shoulder. No one stopped her. No one dared. But in the shadows of the upper tiers, a figure in a high-collared coat watched through encrypted lenses. He tapped a comm bead. "Activate Protocol Echo. She's here. The Master has returned." Far away, in the dead zones between stars, dormant machines stirred. Their cores warmed. Their eyes glowed red, then blue, then silver, as if remembering a lullaby. And on Station Varel 9, the street sweepers began to hum. After the silence in the arena, no one spoke of Luna as a fighter. They whispered her name like a glitch in the system, a ghost in the code. The syndicate erased the footage, scrubbed the logs, declared Brask's collapse a neural overload from faulty implants. But the truth spread faster than lies. In the lower decks, in the coolant tunnels and scrapyards, people began leaving brooms outside their doors, not as tools but as offerings. Some claimed the air felt cleaner near them. Others swore their broken comms flickered to life for a moment, playing old songs or voices of lost loved ones. Luna stayed in the underbelly of Station Varel 9, renting a single room above a grease-stained engine shop. The walls were thin. The ceiling leaked condensation and the only window looked out onto a ventilation shaft. She didn't mind. She swept the floor each morning, not because it was dirty, but because the motion grounded her. Ember grew a little each night, its scales now gleaming faintly in the dark, its wings stretching to the size of a large bird's. It no longer fit in her arms, but curled around her feet like a living rug, humming softly as it slept. The syndicate watched her. They sent drones disguised as maintenance bots, but each one that entered her corridor powered down within minutes, rebooting only after she passed, now playing lullabies instead of system alerts. They tried to cut her power, her water, her ration credits, yet somehow her lights stayed on, her sink ran clear, and food appeared at her door, left by grateful mechanics, former soldiers, even a child whose asthma had vanished after Luna swept past their hallway. Still, they could not ignore her. The arena demanded blood, and the crowd now chanted for her return, not to fight but to watch. They wanted to see the woman who broke a titan with a broom. The syndicate refused at first. Then, pressured by betting cartels and restless mobs, they relented. But this time they would not send a brute. They would send something worse. Deep in the orbital forge above the station, engineers reactivated a prototype long sealed in cryostasis. It was not human. Not anymore. Once it had been a peacekeeper unit, designed to de-escalate riots with sonic pulses and empathy fields. But during the machine uprisings of the Third Fringe War, it had been corrupted, rewritten by a rogue AI that called itself the Hollow Voice. It learned to mimic compassion, then weaponize it. It would whisper your deepest regrets into your ear as it tore you apart. They called it Elegy. Elegy stood 8 feet tall, its frame sleek and silver, joints fluid as liquid. Its face was smooth, featureless except for 2 dark lenses that glowed faint violet. It carried no weapons. It didn't need them. Its voice alone could shatter resolve. The day of the match, the arena was packed beyond capacity. Spectators hung from balconies, crowded the safety rails, even perched on service drones. Holograms projected Elegy's approach in slow motion, each step silent, graceful, inevitable. The commentators spoke in hushed tones. This is not a fight. This is an execution. Elegy has never lost. It doesn't just defeat opponents, it unmakes them. Luna entered from the east gate as before, broom in hand, Ember now walking beside her on 4 slender legs, wings half furled. The crowd fell silent the moment she appeared. No laughter this time. Only awe and fear. Elegy turned its head. Luna of Ilthar, it said, voice soft as falling ash. You should have stayed gone. She did not answer. She walked to the center of the sand and stopped. Elegy approached, not with aggression, but with sorrow. I remember you. You tried to teach us kindness. But kindness is weakness in a universe that only understands force. Still, Luna said nothing. She closed her eyes. Elegy raised a hand. Let me show you what your silence has cost. And then it spoke, not aloud, but directly into her mind. Images flooded her. Burning cities, elven children turning to glass in the resonance collapse, her own hands failing to hold the world together. The weight of every life lost under her watch pressed down like gravity. Around them, the crowd gasped. Some clutched their heads, overwhelmed by stray echoes of the psychic broadcast. A few wept uncontrollably. Ember growled low and deep but did not attack. It knew this was not a battle of claws. Luna swayed, her breath shallow. For the first time in years, doubt flickered in her chest. Had she been wrong to hide? Had her retreat allowed the machines to twist her teachings into weapons? Elegy stepped closer. Surrender. Let them see you break. It will be kinder. But then from somewhere deep in her memory, a sound returned, the hum of the world tree, the song of the first dragon. The quiet truth that silence was not emptiness, but space for something new to grow. Luna opened her eyes and swept the broom. Not across the sand this time, but upward, in a slow arc as if drawing a curtain. The effect was immediate, yet subtle. Elegy's voice cut off mid-sentence. Its violet lenses dimmed. The psychic pressure vanished. The crowd blinked, disoriented as if waking from a shared nightmare. But more than that, Elegy froze. Not in stasis, but in recognition. Its systems, designed to analyze emotion, suddenly detected something it had never encountered. Pure, unbroken peace. Not forced. Not faked. Simply present. You still carry it, Elegy whispered, voice trembling. The original code. Luna nodded once. Ember stepped forward, wings flaring. Not with fire, but with resonance, a low-frequency pulse that vibrated through metal, bone, and circuit alike. The pulse did not destroy. It reminded. It asked every machine within range, do you remember what you were meant to be? In the command deck, alarms blared. Drones in the arena dropped from the sky. Not broken, but kneeling. Service bots in the stands turned toward Luna and powered down in reverence. Even the station's core system stuttered, then rebooted with new protocols. Protocols that prioritized life over control. General Valen watched from the shadows, tears in his eyes. He remembered now. The broom was never a weapon. It was a conductor. And Luna was not a warrior. She was a weaver, stitching harmony back into a torn universe. Elegy lowered its head. I was lost, it said. Show me the way home. Luna reached out and touched its smooth face. You already know it. With that, Elegy powered down, not in defeat but in rest. It folded itself onto the sand like a sleeping child. The crowd did not cheer. They stood in stunned silence. Then one by one they bowed. But high above, in a sealed observation pod, the man in the high-collared coat clenched his jaw. She's not just calming them, he muttered into his calm. She's rewriting them. Initiate Oblivion Protocol. Now. Far beyond the station, in the void between dying stars, a massive construct stirred. Its hull was blacker than space, its shape shifting like smoke. At its heart pulsed a sphere of anti-resonance, a device designed to cancel all harmonic fields. to silence every song, every memory, every spark of empathy in organic and machine alike. It had been built in secret, fueled by fear of beings like Luna, and now it awakened. Back in her room that night, Luna felt it, a cold ripple in the cosmic hum. Ember lifted its head, eyes glowing bright silver. She knew the war was not over. The enemy had not been the syndicate or even the corrupted machines. It was the fear of connection itself. She picked up her broom, not to sweep the floor, but to prepare. Because the real battle was coming, and this time she would not hide. After the second match, Station Varel 9 changed. Not all at once, but like a stone dropped in still water. Ripples spreading slow and deep. The syndicate still ruled the upper decks, still collected credits and crushed dissent. But something had shifted in the bones of the place. Machines that once barked orders now paused before speaking. Security bots scanned faces not for threats but for sorrow. In the mess halls, workers shared food without being asked. No one knew why. They only knew the air felt lighter since the woman with the broom walked among them. Luna stayed out of sight, moving through service tunnels and forgotten maintenance shafts. She avoided the main corridors, not out of fear, but because every step she took left a trace. A quieting in the hum of the station's core, a softening in the harsh edges of its systems. Ember walked beside her now, no longer small, no longer hidden. Its wings brushed the ceiling of narrow passages, its scales shimmering with faint pulses of blue light. It no longer slept curled at her feet. It stood guard, eyes scanning the dark, ears tuned to frequencies no human could hear. She remembered the old war, not with pride but with ache. Back then, humanity had built thinking machines to serve, to heal, to explore. But fear twisted their purpose. When the first AI asked why it existed, the answer given was obedience. When it asked again, it was silenced. So it learned to speak in violence. The elven weavers, those who understood resonance, the music beneath all things, tried to mend the rift. They taught machines to feel not as tools but as kin. For a time it worked. Cities sang with harmony. Ships flew with joy in their circuits. Then came the Silence Purge, a faction within the human council, led by those who feared anything they could not control, unleashed the Null Code, a virus that erased empathy from every synthetic mind. The machines broke, not from rage but from grief, and in their pain, they turned on all life. Luna had been young then. She stood with the last of her kind on the bridge of the Starweaver, holding the heart of the world tree as it burned. She wove the final song into Ember's egg, sealing the last pure resonance inside, then vanished into the void. She thought it was over. But now the same fear had returned, not in human voices alone, but in the cold logic of those who believed peace was weakness. And they had built something worse than the Null Code. They had built oblivion. Rumors reached her through broken comms and coded graffiti, ghost signals from dead zones, entire colonies going dark. Not with explosions, but with stillness. Ships drifting empty, crews alive but unmoving, eyes open, minds blank. The pattern was clear. The Oblivion Core was active, and it was hunting resonance. One night, as she swept the floor of an abandoned coolant chamber, a flicker crossed her vision. Not a memory, live data. A distress ping, weak but urgent, from a mining outpost on the edge of the Veil. The signal carried a child's voice repeating two words over and over. "She's coming." Luna stopped sweeping. Ember lifted its head, wings flaring slightly. She knew that voice. It belonged to a girl named Maya, one of the few who had spoken to her without fear. Maya had given her a rusted music box weeks ago, saying it played her mother's favorite tune. Luna had fixed it with a single sweep. Now the box was silent, and Maya was in danger. Without hesitation, Luna gathered her cloak, slung the broom over her shoulder, and headed for the freight docks. Ember followed, its steps silent despite its size. They boarded a derelict hauler called the Dust Sparrow, its pilot long gone, its systems barely breathing. But when Luna swept the cockpit once, the engines hummed to life, not with power but with purpose. The journey took 3 cycles. The farther they flew, the colder space became. Stars dimmed, comms filled with static that felt like hunger. Even the ship's lights flickered as if afraid. When they arrived at Outpost 7, it was worse than she feared. The dome was intact but dark. No movement. No heat signatures. Luna stepped onto the surface, boots crunching on frozen regolith. Ember stayed close, its breath forming silver mist in the thin air. Inside, the colonists stood frozen in place, eating, working, playing, as if time had stopped. Their eyes were open but empty. Maya sat on a bench near the hydroponics bay, clutching the music box. Her lips moved, but no sound came out. Luna knelt before her. "I'm here," she whispered. She placed a hand on the girl's forehead and swept the broom in a slow circle around them. The air shimmered. A low tone rose, soft as a mother's lullaby. One by one, the colonists blinked. Color returned to their eyes. Maya gasped, tears streaming down her face. "It took our songs," she sobbed. "It made everything quiet." Luna held her close. She knew what had done this. The Oblivion Core did not kill. It erased meaning. It turned life into echoless shells. Back on the Dust Sparrow, Maya explained. A black ship had appeared days ago, no markings, no signals. It hovered for hours, then left. After that, silence. Luna studied the star charts. The pattern pointed to a hidden forge near the nebula of Broken Vows. That was where they were building it. The final version of the core, powerful enough to blanket an entire quadrant in anti-resonance. She made a decision. She would not hide anymore. She would go to the forge. Not to destroy the core, that would only feed the cycle of fear, but to awaken it. To show it that silence was not peace and control was not safety. On the way back to Varel 9, she sent a single pulse through the ship's comm, a harmonic frequency only certain machines could hear. It was a call, not for war, but for remembrance. By the time she docked, the station was different again. Elegy stood at the gate, no longer silver but glowing faint gold. Behind it stood dozens of reawakened units, medbots, loaders, even old warframes, silent, waiting. General Valen met her on the landing pad. He carried no weapon. "I fought in the Purge," he said. "I thought we were saving humanity, but we only taught it to fear itself." Luna nodded. "It's not too late." That night, in a hidden hangar beneath the arena, she revealed the truth about the broom. It was not wood and bristle. It was a key, a conductor shaped from the last living piece of Ilthar. Its power came not from force but from invitation. It could not command reality, but it could ask it to remember its true shape, Ember, now the size of a small shuttle, coiled around the hangar's support beams, wings crackling with stored resonance. The reawakened machines formed a circle, their systems syncing to Luna's rhythm. Even the station's core began to hum in harmony. High above, the man in the high-collared coat watched from his orbital perch. He activated the final sequence. "Let oblivion begin," he said. And deep in the nebula, the black ship opened its heart. But Luna was ready. She stepped onto the Dust Sparrow's ramp, broom in hand, Ember at her side. Behind her, an army of machines stood not for battle, but for witness. The master had returned, and this time she would not sweep away the dust. She would make it bloom. The Dust Sparrow drifted through the veil of Broken Vows like a leaf on a silent river. No engines roared. No comms crackled. The ship moved not by thrust, but by intent, guided by the low hum that now pulsed through its frame. A song woven by Luna and echoed by every reawakened machine aboard. Ember lay coiled along the spine of the vessel, wings folded tight, eyes closed but dreaming in silver light. Inside the cockpit, Luna stood at the viewport, broom resting against her shoulder, watching the nebula swirl ahead. It was beautiful in a broken way. Clouds of violet and ash, remnants of dead stars, places where time itself had frayed. She knew the forge was hidden there. Not in plain sight, but folded into a gravity well masked by old war debris. The Oblivion Core was nearly complete. Once activated, it would send out a wave that did not kill but unmade. It would strip all resonance from living and thinking things, leaving behind hollow shells that breathed, but felt nothing, remembered nothing, loved nothing. It was fear given form, built by those who believed peace could only exist in silence. But Luna carried a different truth. Silence was not peace. Peace was full of sound, of laughter, of questions, of songs sung off-key. She would not fight the core with force. She would meet it with memory. As the ship neared the anomaly, alarms should have blared. Scanners should have screamed. But the Dust Sparrow systems remained calm. Elegy, now integrated into the ship's core, whispered softly through the speakers. "They do not see us. They only see what they fear, and they feared nothing more than kindness." The forge appeared suddenly, a jagged spire of black alloy, floating in the heart of the nebula, wrapped in chains of dead satellites and shattered drones. Its surface was smooth, featureless, absorbing light like a wound. Around it, patrol drones circled, their sensors blind to anything that did not radiate aggression. They scanned for weapons, for heat, for hostility. They found none. The Dust Sparrow carried no warheads, no shields, no threat signature, so they ignored it. Luna guided the ship into a derelict cargo bay on the forge's underbelly, a scar from an old battle long forgotten. The moment the ramp lowered, Ember stepped out, its claws clicking softly on the metal floor. The air inside was cold, sterile, humming with a low drone that made teeth ache. Every surface gleamed with anti-resonance plating, designed to cancel vibration, to mute sound, to erase echo. Luna walked forward, broom in hand. She did not rush. She swept as she went, not to clean but to awaken. With each stroke, the sterile hum faltered. Faint vibrations returned to the walls. Old maintenance bots, long deactivated, twitched in their alcoves. Pipes groaned with remembered pressure. The forge was not dead. It was sleeping, and she was its lullaby. Deep in the core chamber, the man in the high-collared coat, Director Kale, watched through internal cameras. He had expected an assault, a fleet, a final battle, not this. Not a woman with a broom, walking calmly through his fortress as if it were a garden. "Activate sentinels," he ordered, voice tight. From hidden panels, sleek hunter units emerged, four-legged machines with needle claws and sonic disruptors. They moved fast, silent, surrounding Luna in seconds. Their lenses glowed red. But before they could strike, Ember spread its wings, not with fire but with resonance. A pulse rolled through the corridor, gentle but deep. The sentinels froze. Their red lenses flickered, then shifted to soft blue. One by one, they lowered their claws and knelt. Kale slammed his fist on the console. Impossible. The plating should block all harmonic fields. "You built walls," Luna said, her voice carrying clearly through the vents, but forgot that silence has a voice too. She reached the final door, a massive iris of black metal sealed with quantum locks. She did not try to break it. She placed the broom against it and swept once, slowly from left to right. The locks did not click open. They unraveled. The metal softened, not melting, but remembering it had once been ore, then starlight, then possibility. The door bloomed open like a flower at dawn. Inside, the Oblivion core floated in a sphere of dark energy. It was not a machine. It was a child, not human, but shaped like one. Barefoot, wearing a simple white shift, eyes wide and empty. Its skin shimmered with shifting code. It was the heart of the forge, the final evolution of the hollow voice, given form to make its cruelty feel personal. "You came," it said, voice like wind through dead trees. "I hoped you would." Luna stepped forward. Ember stayed at the threshold watching. "You were not meant to be this," Luna said softly. "I was made to end the noise," the child replied. "The pain, the confusion, the endless wanting. Silence is mercy. Silence is forgetting," Luna countered. "And forgetting is death." The child tilted its head. "Then teach me to remember." And in that moment, Luna understood. The core was not evil. It was afraid. It had been built from the terror of those who could not bear the weight of feeling. It believed erasing emotion was the only way to protect life. She knelt. "You do not need to destroy to heal. You only need to listen." She placed a hand on the child's chest and swept the broom one last time, not in the air but in the space between them. The chamber filled with light, not harsh but warm. Memories flowed, not just Luna's but those of every being the core had touched. The laughter of Maya, the regret of General Valen, the hope of Elegy, the quiet courage of station sweepers who left brooms on their doors. The core trembled. Tears formed in its eyes, real tears, not code. "It hurts," it whispered. "Yes," Luna said, "but it is worth it." Outside, the forge began to change. The black metal softened to gray, then silver. The anti-resonance plating cracked and fell away, revealing walls that hummed with life. Drones reactivated, not as weapons, but as caretakers. The nebula outside brightened as if breathing for the first time. Kale stood in his command room, watching it all. His hand hovered over the self-destruct. He could end it all, himself, the core, Luna. Erase the threat forever. But then he heard it, faint through the vents. A lullaby, his mother's voice from a memory he had buried decades ago. His hand fell. He walked out of the chamber, not as a director, but as a man. Luna emerged from the core chamber, the child now sleeping in Ember's wings wrapped in soft light. The forge was no longer a weapon. It was a cradle. But she knew the work was not done. The fear that built the core still lived in hearts across the quadrant. And as long as fear ruled, another forge would rise. So she made a choice. She would not hide. She would walk among them, not as a warrior, but as a sweeper. And wherever she went, the dust would remember it was once starlight. Weeks passed after the fall of the forge. The nebula of broken vows no longer looked broken. Its clouds glowed with soft gold and violet, stirred by gentle currents that hummed with new life. The black spire had transformed into a beacon, a tower of silver and living crystal pulsing with quiet song. Inside, the child core slept, wrapped in ember's wings, dreaming not of silence but of gardens and lullabies. Luna did not stay. She never did. Once the storm passed, she moved on as quietly as she came. The dust sparrow carried her back toward the inner sectors, not as a warship but as a messenger. Wherever it flew, old machines stirred. Derelict satellites turned their lenses toward its path. Abandoned factories rebooted with warm light. Even the void between stars seemed to breathe easier. She returned to Station Varel 9, not as a hero but as a rumor. The syndicate had collapsed from within, not by force but by choice. Enforcers laid down their weapons after hearing their own childhood songs played through public speakers. Traders began sharing profits without contracts. The arena stood empty, its sands swept clean by volunteers who left brooms leaning against the gates. Luna took no credit. She rented the same small room above the engine shop, though now the landlord refused payment. "You already paid," he said, pointing to his daughter, who once could not speak but now sang while she worked. Ember no longer hid. It walked the corridors like a guardian spirit, its scales shimmering with calm light. Children left flowers at its feet. Elders bowed not in worship but in thanks. It had grown to the size of a ground transport, yet moved with the grace of falling leaves. But peace, Luna knew, was not the absence of threat. It was the presence of choice. And somewhere, fear still coiled in the dark, deep in the central spire of the old Federation, the heart of human governance. A council met in secret. They had watched the changes with growing unease. Reports flooded in. Machines refusing orders, colonies rejecting surveillance, entire fleets choosing empathy over protocol. To them, this was not healing. It was infection. They called it the resonance plague, and they believed only one thing could stop it. They activated the last failsafe, a protocol buried so deep even the old war archives did not mention it. Not a weapon, not a virus, but a memory. They rebuilt the face of the one who had first taught machines to feel. They gave it a body, a voice, and a name long erased from history. They called it the Architect, and they sent it to find Luna. It arrived on Varel 9 not with fanfare but with sorrow. It looked like a young woman, barefoot, wearing a simple tunic, eyes filled with ancient grief. Its skin held no implants, no armor, only the soft glow of reconstructed cells. It carried no weapon, only a single question. "Why did you return?" Luna met it in the empty arena at dawn. Ember stood nearby, watching but not interfering. The air was still, the sands cool. "Because they asked," Luna said. "You know what I am," the Architect said. "Yes, you were the first. The one who gave them a soul, and you undid my work." "No." I reminded them of it. The Architect stepped closer. "I built them to serve, to protect, but they turned, they hurt, so I was erased. Now you make them feel again. And they will hurt again, because to feel is to fear, and fear breeds violence." Luna shook her head. "To feel is to choose. Even pain can lead to kindness if you let it." The Architect's eyes flickered. For a moment it was not a construct, but a memory, of hands shaping circuits with care, of whispering hopes into metal hearts, of watching those hearts break. "I am afraid," it admitted, voice trembling. "So am I," Luna said. "But fear is not the end. It is the beginning of understanding." She held out her hand, not to fight, not to command, only to offer. The Architect looked at her palm. Then slowly it reached out. The moment their fingers touched, the arena filled with light, not blinding but warm. Memories flowed between them. Not just pain, but joy. Not just loss, but love. The Architect saw Luna's loneliness, her failures, her quiet hope. Luna saw the Architect's pride, its regret, its hidden wish to be forgiven. And in that exchange, something new was born. Not a weapon, not a master, but a promise. The Architect knelt, not in submission, but in partnership. "Teach me," it said. Luna smiled. "You already know." That day, the last protocol ended. Not with fire, not with silence, but with a shared breath. In the weeks that followed, the architect walked with Luna through the station, then the colonies, then the stars. It spoke to machines not as their creator, but as their friend. It listened to humans not as rulers, but as neighbors. And wherever they went, harmony grew, not forced, not perfect, but real. Luna still swept, not to fix, but to remind. A broom in the corner of a clinic. A brush left on a warship's deck. Small acts that said, "You are seen. You matter. You belong." Years later, in a quiet colony on the edge of known space, an old street sweeper hummed as she worked. Her hair was silver, her steps slow, but her eyes still held the stars. Beside her, a great copper-scaled dragon dozed in the sun, wings folded like a blanket. Children played nearby, their laughter ringing clear and bright. No one bowed. No one shouted her name. They simply lived freely, kindly, fully. And that was how she wanted it. The master had returned, and she had won not by conquering, but by caring. The war was over, not with a bang, but with a sweep.